walk past a quiet suburban house in Ohio, expecting the faint sound of a TV game show or maybe some soft jazz, but instead, you hear the aggressive bass of God's menu shaking the porch. It's a glitch in the matrix, right? But it's happening and it's spreading. We're witnessing a massive, silent cultural shift that nobody in the industry really saw coming. American grandma's women who grew up on Elvis, the Beatles, maybe even Sabbath, are trading their knitting needles for lightsticks and photocard binders. It's not just a fad, it's a full-blown emotional investment that defies every marketing demographic on paper. Why Stray Kids? Why this specific brand of chaotic, loud energy? It makes me question everything I thought I knew about generational gaps. There's a specific chemistry here, a weirdly wholesome connection between these loud, rebellious boys and the wisdom of age that feels almost protective. It's baffling, it's fascinating, and frankly, I need to understand who exactly is stealing these ladies' hearts and why. Let's get into it. Number 8. The chaotic genius, the ace with the anxious soul, Han Jisung. Alright, let's start this list with a bang, or maybe more of a sonic boom, because placing Han Jisung at the bottom of this specific list feels like a crime against music itself. But hear me out, this is where the rabbit hole gets deep. We are talking about the ace, the guy who can literally do everything, rap faster than a 5G connection, sing with the soul of a blues traveler, and dance like his bones are made of rubber. So, why is he sitting at number 8 when it comes to the American grandma demographic? This is where my personal observation kicks in, and it's a bit complex. I've watched hours of footage, I've seen the way the crowds move, and I think Han presents a very specific challenge to the traditional cookie-baking, sweater-knitting grandmother archetype. He is intense. And I don't mean intense like a dramatic movie. I mean he is a walking, breathing live wire of raw, unfiltered emotion and chaotic energy that can be frankly overwhelming if you're not ready for it. When you look at Han, you're looking at the embodiment of Gen Z anxiety wrapped in a Rockstar leather jacket. I've noticed that the older generation in the States, especially those who lean towards the more conservative or traditional side of entertainment, often look for stability. They gravitate towards the gentleman, the steady hand, the one who smiles on cue. Han? Han is a wild card. One minute, he looks like a harmless, adorable squirrel stuffing his face with cheesecake, which, by the way, is peak grandma bait, let's be real, but the next second, he's spitting bars with an aggression that could peel paint off the walls. That duality, that extreme switch, I think it creates a momentary pause for the older audience. It's like they don't quite know where to place him on their mantle. Is he the sweet grandson? Or is he the troubled artist who needs a therapy session? And let's talk about that troubled artist vibe for a second, because this is where I get a little defensive of him. Han wears his heart on his sleeve in a way that is almost painful to watch. He's open about his anxiety, his introversion, his need to retreat. For a lot of American grandmas who grew up in an era where men were expected to be stoic statues of silence, Han's vulnerability is a culture shock. I've seen comments, rare ones, but they're there, wondering why he looks scared or uncomfortable at airports or big events. They mistake his sensory overload for an attitude problem, and it drives me absolutely insane. They don't see the genius at work, they just see a kid in a hoodie trying to hide from the flashbulbs. It takes a very specific type of grandma to get Han Jisung. It takes the grandma who was maybe a bit of a rebel herself in the 70 seconds, the one who listened to The Clash or the Ramones, the one who understands that brilliance often comes with a side order of chaos. But here's the kicker, and this is why he's on the list at all and not just invisible. Once they do fall for him, they fall harder than anyone else. I've seen it happen. It's usually the vocals that get them. They hear him hit those high notes in a track like Never-Ending Story, or hear the raw desperation in Volcano, and suddenly, the noise of the rap fades away, and they see the soul. The bond between a grandma fan and Han isn't the typical, oh, he's so handsome adoration. No, it's fiercely protective. It's maternal instinct cranked up to 11. They want to wrap him in a weighted blanket and feed him soup. They don't want to date him, they want to save him from the industry. It's a heavy, emotional connection, but because it requires digging past the chaotic surface layer of his mood-maker persona, the sheer volume of grandmas is slightly lower compared to the members who serve that perfect son-in-law energy on a silver platter. It makes me wonder, honestly, if we as a society are still too conditioned to equate composure with maturity, because if you ask me, Han's ability to function at that level of genius while battling his own mind makes him the most mature one in the room. But hey, that's just me screaming into the void. He's the hidden treasure, the one you find when you stop looking for the easy answer.
Number 7. The muscle with the melody, the rapper who rewrites masculinity, Seo Changbin. We are landing at number 7 with a thud, a heavy, resonant thud that sounds a lot like a dumbbell hitting the floor of a gym at 3 a.m. And frankly, placing Seo Changbin this low on the list feels like a personal attack on my own sensibilities, but we have to look at the raw data of the American grandma demographic with brutal honesty. Here we have a man who is built like a tank, spits fire like a dragon, and carries the entire rhythmic backbone of the group on his shoulders. Yet, he sits at number 7. Why? It's the genre barrier. Plain and simple. Let's strip away the fan filters for a second and look at this through the eyes of a 5-year-old woman living in rural Kansas. She grew up on Frank Sinatra, maybe progressed to the Eagles, or if she was wild, Aerosmith. Then you introduce her to Changbin. The first thing she hears isn't a melody. It's a guttural, aggressive, machine gun flow that hits you in the chest like a physical blow. For a demographic that often complains that modern music is just noise, Changbin is the final boss. He is the noise, he is the storm, and initially, that scares them off. I've seen the reaction videos. I've seen the comments. There is a genuine moment of recoil when he starts his verse in God's Menu or Thunderous. It's a sensory assault that requires a specific kind of ear to appreciate, and it takes time to break down that wall. But, and this is a massive, bolded, underlined BUT, once that wall comes down, the obsession that follows is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's the teddy bear effect, because what happens when you peel back the layers of this supposed dark rapper? You find the softest, most emotionally intelligent, most principled man in the entire lineup. This is where the narrative shifts from fear to fierce adoration. American grandmas love a man with Jutdae principles. They might not know the Korean word, but they recognize the spirit. They see a man who refuses to compromise his artistic vision, a man who eats with gusto. And let's be real, grandmas love a boy who eats well. It triggers that primal instinct to feed him lasagna, and a man who isn't afraid to be the butt of the joke to make his brothers laugh. There is a profound respect that develops here. I've noticed a trend where the older fans, the ones who have lived through life's hardships, resonate deeply with his solo track, Streetlight. They stop seeing the muscles and start seeing the lonely guy standing under the lamp, pouring his heart out about the pressure of being strong for everyone else. That hits home, that connects with the matriarch who has had to be the rock for her family for decades. They see themselves in his hidden vulnerability. It's a slow burn though. Unlike the visual members who might hook a grandma instantly with a smile, Changbin makes them work for it. He demands that you listen, really listen, to what he's saying. And when I think about his role in the group, the Dwayki persona, the pig-rabbit hybrid, it sounds ridiculous on paper, right? Try explaining to a retired school teacher that her favorite singer identifies as a pig-rabbit. It sounds like a hallucination. But it works because it disarms his intensity. It shows he doesn't take himself too seriously and that humility is catnip for the older generation who are tired of arrogant celebrities. They see a man who is comfortable in his own skin, whether he's flexing a bicep or doing aegyo. But here's my gripe, and I have to say it. The industry still tries to box him in as just the tough guy, and I think that marketing hurts his reach with this specific demographic. If they promoted his ballads, his vocals, which are shockingly good, by the way, and his softer side more aggressively to the Western general public, he would skyrocket up this list. He is the classic, don't judge a book by its cover case study. He is the biker with the heart of gold, the tough guy who cries at movies. It's a trope that works in Hollywood for a reason, but the language barrier and the rap-heavy discography act as a gatekeeper. So, he stays at number 7. a hidden gem reserved for the grandmas who are brave enough to look past the spikes and leather to find the warm, beating heart underneath. It's a tragedy of marketing, but a triumph of character for those who find him. And honestly, the grandmas who do bias Changbin are the coolest ones at the nursing home. They are the ones who probably rode motorcycles in the 80s. They get it. They understand that true strength isn't about looking scary, it's about being brave enough to be soft. Number 6. The trot soul in designer clothes, the grandson who got away, the smile that could end wars, Han Jisung. We are sliding into the number 6 spot with a member who represents something profoundly primal in the psychology of the American grandmother, and that is the baby bread phenomenon, otherwise known as the irresistible urge to pinch cheeks and offer unsolicited life advice. Han Jisung, or IN, sits here at number 6, and honestly, this placement is the most confusing one for me personally, because on paper he should be number 1. He is the quintessential good boy. He has that clean-cut, sharp, jawed, fox-eyed visual that screams future son-in-law, or, more accurately for this demographic, the grandson who actually calls you on Sundays. But here is the fascinating nuance. In the United States, the maknae, youngest member, trope hits differently. While in Korea, being the youngest is a position of power and endless pampering for the American grandma, it sometimes creates a barrier of "he's just a baby" that stops them from fully investing in the idol fantasy. They look at him and see innocence. They see a child. And while that triggers a massive protective instinct, I'm talking about a mother bear level of defense. It keeps him slightly lower on the list compared to the members who project a more rugged but adult masculinity. But don't let the number 6 fool you. The IN fanbase within this demographic is perhaps the most vocal and the most financially generous. Why? Because they are spoiling him, literally. Let's talk about the trot factor. This is the secret weapon that I think a lot of Western analysts overlook. Jeonjeon grew up singing trot, which is basically the Korean equivalent of old-school country or folk standards music with deep vibrato, heavy emotion, and stories of heartbreak and longing. Even if a grandmother in Ohio or Florida has never heard a trot song in her life, she hears the history in his voice. When IN sings a ballad, or even his parts in a pop song, there is a distinct, resonant quality, a cry in his voice that sounds like an old soul trapped in a Gen Z body. It reminds them of the crooners from the 50s and 60s. It reminds them of a time when singers stood at a microphone and just delivered without the pyrotechnics. I've seen grandmas react to his cover of Camellia Lady, even if they don't understand the words, with tears in their eyes because the sentiment transcends the language barrier. He communicates a kind of nostalgic sorrow that resonates deeply with women who have lived long lives. It's a bizarre, beautiful cultural crossover where a Korean folk tradition hooks into the American senior citizens' heartstrings. However, we have to address the glow-up crisis. And yes, I am calling it a crisis because I've seen the panic in the comment sections. For years, IN was the brace-faced smiling baby, the ageless maknae. But recently, the man has hit the gym. He's wearing sleeveless shirts. He's doing body rolls that are, frankly, illegal for someone with that face. And this is causing a massive cognitive dissonance for the grandma squad. They are torn between, "Oh, he's growing up so well," and "Put a shirt on, you'll catch a cold." It's a hilarious internal conflict. They want him to succeed, but they also want to keep him in a glass box where the corrupting influence of the sexy concept can't touch him. This transition period is why he's at number 6. The demographic is currently recalibrating. They are trying to figure out if they are allowed to find him attractive or if they should stick to adorable. It's a moral dilemma played out in real time on Twitter and Facebook fan groups. And then there's his personality, the maknae on top. This is the other hook. American grandmas love a cheeky brat. They love the kid who smiles like an angel but is actually running the show behind the scenes. They see him bossing around his older brothers, especially Changbin and Bang Chan, and they laugh. It reminds them of their own family dynamics. It makes him feel human, relatable, and sharp. He isn't just a pretty face. He's witty, he's savage, and he's smart. But, and I have to be honest here, sometimes his fashion choices, the high concept, avant-garde Alexander McQueen looks alienate the more traditional sector of this demographic. They see the ripped jeans or the experimental layers and they just don't get it. They want him in a suit. They want him looking like he's going to church. The fashion industry loves I.N., but Grandma in Texas just wants to know why his pants have so many holes in them. It's a clash of high fashion versus traditional values. Ultimately, I.N. is the safe harbor. In a group that is often loud, chaotic and experimental, his voice is usually the clear, melodic anchor. When the beat drops and the rap creates a storm, I.N.'s verse is the sunlight breaking through the clouds. For an older listener, that melody is a lifeline. It's the part of the song they can hum. It's the part that makes sense. So, while he sits at number 6, do not underestimate the power of the Bread Club. These women would single-handedly fund a solo album if he asked. They would knit him a sweater the size of a house. They are the quiet, steady force that ensures he never, ever has to worry about an empty audience. But until he fully sheds the baby image in their eyes, or until they accept that their grandson is a full-grown man, he remains the cherished, protected, but slightly infantilized number 6. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly where he wants to be. Safe, loved, and fed. Number 5. The golden retriever with a hidden pitchfork, the vocalist who never misses a note, the ultimate boy next door with a twist, Kim Sungmin. We are crossing the halfway mark with a member who, quite frankly, is the master of disguise. Placing Kim Sungmin at number 5 feels like a setup, because if you ask any American grandma who looks the most like the ideal, polite, church-going grandson, the answer is invariably Sungmin. He lands here in the middle of the pack not because he lacks appeal, but because his charm is a slow-acting poison in the best way possible. You see, Sungmin presents himself as the dandy boy. He's the guy in the crisp button-down shirt, the one with the neat hair, the one who looks like he actually irons his clothes. For a generation that often complains about scruffy celebrities or weird fashion, Sungmin is a visual relief. He looks like he could walk into a Sunday dinner in the Midwest and instantly be offered the last piece of pie. He radiates a kind of wholesome, scholarly energy that is absolute kryptonite for the grandmother demographic. But here is where the plot twists, and this is why I find him so fascinating to watch. The baseball factor. Do not underestimate this. Baseball is America's pastime. It is the sport of nostalgia, of hot dogs, of summer evenings. Sungmin is a baseball fanatic. When he threw the first pitch for the MLB in Seoul, I saw the ripple effect across the fandom. Suddenly, grandmas who hadn't watched a game in 20 years were tuning in. He speaks the language of the sport discipline, practice, precision. There is a shared cultural touchstone there that the other members just don't have. It grounds him. It makes him relatable to the husband of the grandma too. It's a safe obsession that bridges cultures. He isn't just an idol, he's an athlete in spirit. Then we have the voice. Oh, the voice. If Felix is the deep rumble, Sungmin is the clear, piercing bell. He has a tone that cuts through the electronic noise of K-pop like a laser. It's stable. It's reliable. And for an older audience that values technical skill over flashiness, Sungmin is the gold standard. He doesn't rely on auto-tune crutches, he stands there and sings. His cover of Love Again or Zombie sung in impeccable English acts as a gateway drug. I've seen women in their 60s share his covers on Facebook with captions like, "Finally, a boy who can really sing. It's a validation of their taste." They feel smart for liking him. They feel like they've discovered a classic talent in a modern world. However, the mad dog persona is the wild card. This is where the twist comes in. At first glance, he's a puppy, a golden retriever. But anyone who watches him for more than 5 minutes realizes he is the most savage, quick-witted, and hilariously dry member of the group. He torments his leaders lovingly, he makes deadpan jokes that fly over people's heads, and he refuses to be sentimental just for the sake of it. And you know what? American grandmas love a smart aleck. They love a kid with a bit of spice. It reminds them of the mischievous boy in their 3rd grade class who grew up to be a CEO. It shows intelligence. It shows he's not just a puppet. When he roasts Changbin or teases Lee No, the older fans cackle. It's the kind of humor that transcends language barriers because facial expressions don't lie. So why isn't he higher? Why is he stuck at number 5? I think it's because his brand is quiet excellence. He doesn't demand attention, he earns it. In a market screaming for attention with neon hair and crop tops, Sungmin's quiet confidence can sometimes get lost in the initial scroll. He is the slow burn bias. You don't notice him first, but once you notice him, you can't look away. He is the one you trust. He is the stability in the chaos of Stray Kids. And for a grandma who maybe feels like the world is spinning a bit too fast, Sungmin is the anchor. He's the promise that some things like good manners, hard work, and a beautiful melody never go out of style. He's the sleeper hit of the century, and frankly, I think his ranking is only going to climb as he gets older. He ages like fine wine, and the grandmas know it.
Number 4. The cat butler with the face of a prince, the savage chef who owns your heart, the mystery box himself, Lee No. We are now entering the top 4, and things are getting serious because we have arrived at the enigma, the paradox, the man who could probably dismantle a car engine with a straight face and then go home to cuddle 3 cats. Lee No, or Lee Min-ho, sits at number 4, and I have to say, this placement feels like the calm before the storm. If you ask me, Lee No is the member who captures the sophisticated grandmother demographic, the women who appreciate fine art, classical music, and maybe a glass of expensive red wine while judging their neighbors. Why? Because Lee No is, visually and behaviorally, a throwback to a different era of stardom. Look at his face. Really look at it. He doesn't have that hyper-modern, overly styled look that confuses the older generation. No, he has the classic statuesque features of a 90 seconds Hong Kong movie star or a young Hollywood heartthrob from the golden age. There is a symmetry, a sharpness, and a traditional masculinity to his visuals that acts as an instant hook. I've seen comments from women in their 60s saying he reminds them of their first crush in high school or a young Alain Delon. He feels familiar. He feels like a man, not a boy band member. That distinction is crucial. But the real glue? The absolute undeniable magnet that pulls American grandmas into his orbit? It's the cats. We cannot talk about Lee No without talking about Suni, Doonji, and Dory. In the world of American suburbia, the cat lady is a powerful, often misunderstood, but fiercely loyal demographic. When they see this incredibly handsome young man obsessing over his cats, talking about them like they are his children, and posting photos of their paws instead of his own face, a switch flips. It validates their own love for animals. It shows a nurturing, gentle soul beneath the sharp exterior. It tells them, he has a good heart. You can be the best dancer in the world and we'll get to that, but if you treat animals with that level of devotion, you automatically win the trust of every grandmother who has ever fed a stray kitten. It's a character witness that no amount of PR training can fake. And let's be honest, the way he talks about those cats, it's not just cute, it's practically a religion for him. However, Lee No is not just a pretty face with a cat. He is the tsundere of the group, cold on the outside, warm on the inside. And you might think, wouldn't that turn older fans off? Absolutely not. In fact, it's the opposite. American grandmas, especially those who have raised multiple children and dealt with rebellious teenagers, have a built-in radar for authenticity. They are tired of the fake nice. They are tired of the plastered-on smiles. When Lee No scowls, or makes a sarcastic remark, or threatens to put his members in an air fryer, a sentence that still haunts me, by the way, they laugh. They love it. They see a young man who has boundaries. They see someone who isn't desperate for approval. There is a respect there. They look at him and think, he's got a backbone. He reminds them of that one quiet, grumpy uncle who would actually give you the shirt off his back if you really needed it. It's the tough love appeal. He doesn't coddle his fans, and surprisingly, the older demographic finds that refreshing. They feel like they are in on the joke. They feel like they understand him in a way the younger, more sensitive fans might not. He's just being Minho, they say with a knowing nod, like they've known him for years. Then we have the professional angle. Lee No is the dance leader. His background as a backup dancer for BTS before debut gives him a work ethic narrative that appeals to the pull yourself up by your bootstraps generation. They watch him dance, and they don't just see movement, they see precision, they see discipline, they see the years of sweat and unglamorous grind behind the scenes. He is the technician. He is the one who ensures the show goes on. I've watched reaction videos where older women focus entirely on him during dance breaks, mesmerizing by the way he controls his body. It's not sexual, it's an appreciation of mastery. It's the same way they might appreciate a master carpenter or a skilled pianist. He represents competence. In a world that feels increasingly chaotic and incompetent, watching Lee Know nail a choreography with surgical precision is strangely comforting. And let's not forget the cooking. The man can cook. He goes camping. He can survive in the woods. This taps into the primal provider archetype, a man who can cook a decent meal and set up a tent. That's the ultimate seal of approval for a grandmother worrying about who will take care of the group. He is the dad of the dorm in a very practical, hands-on way. He feeds them. He scolds them. He makes sure they don't die. But here is my personal observation, the thing that keeps me up at night about Lee Know's rank. He is a mystery box. Even after all these years, he keeps a part of himself locked away. He is private. He doesn't overshare. And for the American grandma, that mystery is addictive. They want to figure him out. They want to be the one who cracks the code. It's a never-ending puzzle. Every time he smiles a genuine, gum-bearing smile, it feels like a victory. It feels earned. He doesn't give it away for free. So, while he sits at number 4, know this. His fans are the ones who will stick around the longest. They aren't here for the hype, they are here for the man. They respect his privacy, they adore his cats, and they fear his wrath just enough to keep things interesting. He is the dark horse, the silent guardian, the one you'd want on your side in a zombie apocalypse, and for that, the grandmas of America salute him. He's not just an idol, he's a standard. And honestly, I think he knows it. That smirk tells me he knows exactly what he's doing. Number 3. The reincarnation of a 90s romance cover, the dramatic artist who stole the museum, the Prince of Versailles, Hyunjin. We are now in the top 3, the Holy Trinity, the podium finishers, and sitting comfortably at number 3 with a fan base that rivals the population of a small European country is the man, the myth, the visual phenomenon, Hyunjin. And let me tell you, if you thought the previous members were popular, the jump in sheer, unadulterated obsession here is vertical. Hyunjin is the member who single-handedly bridges the gap between I don't get this K-pop stuff and oh my god, who is that? For the American grandma demographic. Why? Because Hyunjin is nostalgia weaponized. Look at him. I mean, really look at him when he has that long blonde hair tied back or flowing loose. He doesn't look like a modern pop star to a 70-year-old woman. He looks like the cover model of every Harlequin romance novel she bought at the grocery store in 1985. He is the living embodiment of the Fabio archetype, but with a delicate, ethereal twist that makes him less threatening and more dreamlike. I have spoken to grandmas who literally have framed photos of Hyunjin next to their grandkids because, and I quote, he is just so beautiful to look at. It's the Prince Charming effect. In a world where modern masculinity is often portrayed as rugged or overly casual, Hyunjin brings back the era of the dandy, the poet, the romantic lead in a period drama. He carries himself with a regality that screams Versailles, and for an older generation that grew up idealizing royalty and high-glamour Hollywood stars like Brad Pitt in Legends of the Fall, or a young Leonardo DiCaprio, Hyunjin is the second coming. He hits that sweet spot of being undeniably masculine yet breathtakingly beautiful, a combination that confuses men but absolutely mesmerizes women of a certain age. But it's not just the face. If it were just the face, he might be lower. It's the drama. Hyunjin is a dramatic performer. He feels everything at 110%. When he dances, he isn't just executing steps, he is acting out a tragedy, a romance, a war. American grandmas, who are often the primary consumers of soap operas and dramatic TV series, recognize this energy instantly. They see a storyteller. They see passion. I've seen comment threads on Facebook groups, yes, the deep, dark web of grandma Facebook groups where they dissect his facial expressions in red lights or play with fire with the seriousness of art critics. They aren't sexualizing it in the way a teenage fan might. They are appreciating the theater of it. They love that he commits. They love that he isn't afraid to look crazy or obsessed on stage. It resonates with their appreciation for classic performance art. And speaking of art, this is the nail in the coffin, the thing that seals the deal and makes Hyunjin untouchable in the number 3 spot, the painting. Oh my god, the painting! Do not underestimate how much American grandmas love a man with a refined hobby. When Hyunjin started posting his art, his oil paintings, his sketches, the demographic shifted. He went from being the handsome boy to the tortured artist. Grandmas love a tortured artist. It gives them a reason to brag about him to their friends at bingo. Look at this, he painted this. He's not just a singer, he's a real artist. It validates their fandom. It makes liking a K-pop boy feel intellectual, cultured, and sophisticated. They see his sensitivity, his need to express himself through canvas, and it triggers that maternal instinct to protect his fragile soul. I've noticed a very specific narrative among the older Hyunjin fans. They are fiercely protective of his happiness. They treat him like a porcelain doll that the industry is trying to break. When the bullying scandal happened years ago, the Grandma Brigade didn't waver. They dug their heels in. They were the ones posting long, grammatically correct paragraphs about redemption and growth. They saw a young man being targeted and they adopted him. They became his shield. It was actually kind of terrifying to witness in the best way possible. You do not mess with a grandma's favorite artist. And let's be real, Hyunjin's personality off stage, the drama queen, the loud laugh, the way he bickers with the members is pure entertainment. He is funny without trying to be. He is a mood. Grandmas love a character. They love someone who isn't boring. Hyunjin is never, ever boring. He is a walking reaction meme. But there is also a sadness to him, a quiet introspection that he shows in his vlogs, that hooks them. They want to fix him. They want to tell him everything is going to be okay. It's a parasitic relationship of emotion where they feed off his beauty and pain, and in return, they give him unconditional, unwavering loyalty. He is the muse. He is the one they project their lost youth onto. Watching Hyunjin perform makes them feel young again. It reminds them of the butterflies they felt watching their first concert in 1974. He is a time machine in a Versace shirt, and honestly, I get it. If I were a grandma, I'd probably have a Hyunjin photo card in my purse too. He's just that captivating. He represents the beauty that the world is often missing. So, number 3 is his throne, and he sits on it with a paintbrush in one hand and a microphone in the other, looking down at us mere mortals while the grandmas of America applaud.
Number 2. The captain who never sleeps, the Atlas of K-pop, the gentleman from down under, Bang Chan. We have arrived at the runner-up spot, the silver medal position, and let me tell you, this is where things get heavy, emotional, and frankly, a little bit spiritual. Placing Bang Chan, or Christopher as the grandmas lovingly call him, at number 2 is a testament to the sheer power of character over concept. If Hyunjin is the visual prince and Felix is the deep-voiced angel, Bang Chan is the soul. He is the father figure, the protector, the architect, and the man who seems to carry the weight of the entire world on his surprisingly broad shoulders. Why do American grandmas flock to him in droves? It starts with the name Christopher. It's a classic, strong, biblical name. It sounds like the name of a boy who mows your lawn for free because he's just that nice. It sounds familiar. It doesn't scare them. But beyond the name, it is his manners. We are talking about a man who bows at a 90-degree angle to everyone, from the security guard to the cleaning lady. In a culture that often feels like it has lost its sense of civility, Bang Chan is a walking, breathing masterclass in etiquette. I have seen grandmas on Facebook practically swooning over how well-raised he is. They comment things like, "His mother must be so proud," which, in the grandma lexicon, is the highest compliment a human being can receive. They see a young man who respects tradition, respects his elders, and respects his craft. That Australian accent doesn't hurt either. Let's be real, it adds a layer of rugged, Crocodile Dundee charm that appeals to the generation who grew up romanticizing the outback. But the real hook, the thing that keeps them up at night literally, is the Chan's Room phenomenon. For years, this man turned on a camera every week to just talk. to listen, to play music. And not just K-pop, he played everything from old school R&B to rock classics. He created a digital sanctuary. For a lot of older fans who might be dealing with loneliness, empty nest syndrome, or just the feeling of being invisible in a youth-obsessed world, Chan's room was a lifeline. He looked into the camera and asked, "How was your day?" with genuine sincerity. He offered a big hug at the end of the stream. Do not underestimate the power of that virtual hug. I've read testimonials from women in their 60s and 70s who said that Sunday nights with Chan were the highlight of their week because it was the one time they felt truly seen and comforted. He became the surrogate grandson, the therapist, the friend. But with that love comes a massive, overwhelming wave of worry. This is the core of the Grandma-Chan relationship. Anxiety. They know he doesn't sleep. They know he works until 5 a.m. producing songs. They see the dark circles under his eyes, the pale skin, the exhaustion he tries to hide behind a smile, and it drives them absolutely crazy. The maternal instinct kicks in with the force of a hurricane. If you go into any comment section on a Bang Chan post, it is flooded with, "Christopher, please sleep. Christopher, have you eaten? Christopher, take a break." They aren't asking for a selfie, they are begging him to take care of himself. It is a relationship defined by a fierce desire to nurture him because he spends his entire life nurturing everyone else. He is the ultimate sacrificial leader. He puts his members first, his fans second, and himself last. American grandmas, who have often spent their lives making sacrifices for their own families, recognize that trait instantly. They see a kindred spirit. They see a man who understands duty, and they respect him for it, but they also want to wrap him in bubble wrap and force-feed him chicken soup. It's a complex emotional dynamic. They view him as the good man in a bad industry. When he speaks about mental health, about struggling, about not feeling good enough, it resonates. He strips away the idle veneer and shows the human struggle. And let's not forget the physical aspect. The man is built like a Greek statue. When he finally takes off the shirt during a concert, the reaction from the older demographic isn't just, "Oh, he's hot." It's more like, "Good Lord, look at the discipline." They appreciate the hard work that goes into that physique. They respect the grind. But at the end of the day, Bang Chan is at number 2 because he represents reliability. In a world where celebrities fall from grace every other day, Chan feels like a rock. He feels steady. He is the captain of the ship, and the grandmas of America trust him to steer it safely. They are his army, his defenders. If anyone attacks Chan online, the Grandma Brigade is the first line of defense, and trust me, you do not want to argue with a 70-year-old retired librarian who has receipts and knows how to use caps lock. He is their Christopher, and they will protect him at all costs. It's a love that is deep, heavy, and incredibly powerful. Number 1. The angel with the voice of a devil, the brownie-baking warlord of hearts, the living reincarnation of a 50s crooner, Felix. We have arrived. We are at the summit. If you walk into a retirement home in Arizona, a knitting circle in Florida, or a Sunday brunch in the Midwest, and you whisper the name Yongbok, heads will turn. We are talking about the undisputed heavyweight champion of the American grandmother demographic, the member who sits at number 1 not just by a margin, but by a landslide that defies the laws of physics. Lee Felix. Now, let's take a deep breath, because explaining the Felix phenomenon requires us to dismantle everything we think we know about pop culture and generational gaps. You might think, oh, it's because he's pretty. No. Stop right there. That is too simple. That is insulting. The obsession with Felix goes so much deeper than aesthetics. It is rooted in a sonic and emotional paradox that literally short-circuits the brain of anyone over the age of 60. Let's start with the voice. You know the one. That subterranean, tectonic plate-shifting bass that sounds like it's coming from the bottom of a well in a horror movie. For a Gen Z kid, it's cool. But for an American grandma? That voice is a time machine. It takes them back to Elvis Presley. It takes them back to Johnny Cash. It takes them back to a time when men sounded like men. When Felix opens his mouth and drops 5 octaves below sea level in God's Menu or Maniac, it triggers a nostalgic dopamine hit that is unparalleled. I have seen reaction videos of women in their 70 seconds physically clutching their pearls unironically. When he speaks, it's a sensory shock. They look at this ethereal, fairy-like boy with blonde hair and delicate features, expecting a high-pitched pop voice, and instead, they get a voice that could narrate a war documentary. That contrast, that glitch in the Matrix, it hooks them instantly. They can't process it, so they become obsessed with it. It's the baritone trap, and Felix is the master hunter. But then, you have the freckle factor. In a K-pop industry that often airbrushes skin into oblivion, Felix embraces his freckles. And do you know who loves natural, sun-kissed skin? Grandmas. To them, those freckles represent youth, innocence, and the outdoors. They remind them of their own kids playing in the backyard in 1978. It makes him look human. It makes him look touchable. While other idols might feel like distant plastic deities, Felix looks like the boy who lives down the street and mows your lawn. There is an accessibility to his beauty that is lethal. He doesn't look intimidatingly perfect, he looks endearingly perfect. And let's not even get started on the sunshine personality. The boy bakes brownies. He literally bakes brownies and gives them to staff and members. If you were to engineer a human being in a lab specifically designed to target the grandmother demographic, you would program him to bake chocolate confectionaries. It is the ultimate good boy trait. They see him mixing batter, smiling with that blinding eye smile warmth, and they are done. Game over. They want to adopt him. They want to write him into their wills. The baking fairy narrative is the most powerful marketing tool in Stray Kids' arsenal, and I'm not even sure they realize it. However, I need to get serious for a moment because my observation of Felix's hearthstone spot isn't just about cookies and deep voices. It's about pain. Felix has been open about his physical struggles, his back injury, the herniated disc that threatened his career, and here is where the relationship turns from fandom to fanaticism. American grandmas are the ultimate healers. When they see a young man pushing his body to the limit, dancing through pain, wearing a back brace, their maternal instinct goes nuclear. I have stumbled upon prayer circles, actual, literal prayer circles on Facebook dedicated to Felix's spine. I'm not joking. They pray for his lumbar discs. They worry about his posture. They analyze his gait at airports to see if he's limping. This level of concern creates an emotional bond that is stronger than steel. They aren't just fans, they are his guardians. They feel a personal responsibility for his well-being. When he cried on stage in Seoul, sobbing his heart out about his grandmother, the collective heart of the American grandma fandom shattered. They saw a boy who loves his family, a boy who isn't afraid to weep, and that vulnerability sealed the deal forever. He is the soft masculinity that they wish the men in their own generation had possessed. And let's talk about the luxury aspect. Felix is a Louis Vuitton ambassador. He wears high fashion, but he wears it with a grace that appeals to the old money aesthetic. He doesn't look like a hype beast, he looks like a prince. Grandmas appreciate quality. They appreciate a well-tailored coat. They appreciate the fact that he looks expensive. It validates their taste. Look at him, they say. He looks like a movie star from the golden age. He bridges the gap between the avant-garde and the classic. He can wear a skirt and pearls, and somehow the grandmas don't mind. In fact, they love the pearls. Why? Because they wear pearls. It's a shared fashion language. It's hilarious and brilliant. He has unknowingly become a style icon for the geriatric set because he accessorizes better than they do. So, why is he number one? Because Felix is the safe harbor in a scary world. He is kind. He donates to UNICEF. He became the youngest member of the Honors Club, a fact every grandma fan can recite by heart. He is polite. He has a voice that commands respect and a face that invites love. He is the perfect storm of cool and cute. He allows these women to participate in a youth subculture, K-pop, without feeling alienated because he embodies values they understand. Hard work, kindness, family and baking. He is the bridge. He is the grandson they brag about at the hair salon. He is the one who makes them feel like the world is going to be okay because someone like him exists in it. And honestly, watching this legion of silver-haired warriors defend this deep-voiced Australian fairy with every fibre of their being is the most wholesome, terrifying, and beautiful thing I have ever witnessed in pop culture history. He isn't just an idol to them, he is Felix. And that is enough.